achieved.
It seems like right now I just can't seem to buy a break, at least when it comes to just various external things that are happening. I had that ordeal with YouTube. I had to go through, I said, meticulously go through every single YouTube video to remove any of the offending links to DraftKings or any other betting site to avoid receiving a second or third strike against my channel to lose the ability to upload. Handled that. Then, the other day when I was in my office at the school I work at, I'm a teacher, for those of you who don't already know, I put my computer bag down on my chair, and the bag flipped forward, and my hard drive, my external hard drive slid out and landed on the floor. Little innocent bump. And then when I plugged it in, it worked. It seemed like it was fine. When I started opening up my files, there were various files missing, and I have lost a ton of things. Both my school, a lot of the lessons I teach that I store online, lost those. But a lot of the things I used to run my website, run my video, I had to redo a lot of things. The Conor McGregor clip that I usually use when I introduce myself is gone, unfortunately. I'll have to take a time to track that down at some point. But yeah, it's just been a shit show. So, again, fortunately, I've got it up and running here, and we've got a pretty good card ahead of us. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking the upcoming UFC Fight Night 154 event, which will go down on June 22nd. It should be a fantastic card featuring Renato Moicano and Jung, more commonly known as the Korean Zombie, in the main event. I'm coming off a show I went 8-5. I lost the main event. That was the big, 9-4 is a decent record, and I really was hinging on Marlon Moraes to get the job done, and he just didn't. He faltered, and Henry Cejudo won the title. Good, congrats to him. He put up a good fight. I don't know how I still feel about Henry Cejudo. It's just not something he's not somebody I'm sold on just yet. He's a fantastic athlete, but as a person, he just seems to rub me the wrong way. We'll see how things go moving forward. Also, my bet packs, again, didn't quite cash in the way I was hoping they would with Marlon. I had Tony Ferguson, I had Moraes, and I had Calder. I thought Calder would, probably might have lost that fight, but I can't stand Caitlin Chukagian, the way she fights. It's just frustrating and exhausting to watch her fight and throw out those key eyes and just that fake fighting style that ultimately got her the win, but it's just frustrating. Either way, we're back at it here again. A very fun fight card, 12 fights in total. I'll be giving you all 6 of my main card predictions here. My 6 preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net, so head over there and check them out along with the bet packs. You can follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. I will be off-site to watch this event. It's going to be should be a fun card either way, but I'm going on a little bit of a trip, so that'll be a lot of fun. On that note, let's get to our first main card prediction. The opening fight of the night goes down to the women's strawweight division as Ashley the Spider Monkey Yoder, 6-4, battles Japan's Syuri Kondo, the current record of 6 wins and 2 losses. Now, Yoder's coming off a split decision win over Amanda Cooper, her first victory in the UFC. She had previously lost a split decision against the highly touted Mackenzie Dern. For Syuri Kondo, she won her debut by split decision, but has gone 0-2 since, and she is fighting in the States for the first time coming into this matchup. Physically, Yoder 3 inches taller, she'll have a 3-inch reach advantage, and she's the older fighter by 2 years. Now, quite honestly, neither girl's really found their footing, and ultimately, they really need to turn this fight, their careers around here if they want to maintain their spot in the big show. Yeah, Yoder's coming off a win, but I think her stock drops significantly if she drops this fight. For Kondo, it's hard to recover from 3 consecutive defeats, and could easily find her walking papers if she's unsuccessful here. Now, Kondo's offense is built primarily around her striking attack. Now, she lacks stopping power. She has just a single win by knockout, but she is fairly consistent with her offense. Her volume is solid. She landed 135 significant strikes in her debut. She landed 86 strikes in her most recent fight. But defensively, she's very hittable. In her 2 decision fights, where she's gone a full 15 minutes, she's given up 95 and 150 significant strikes. And we saw Poliana Bontello put her down with a brutal body kick. So defensively, she's right there to be taken if Yoder can put it on her. And Yoder, she has a fairly solid jab. Doesn't have a ton of power herself. She never knocked anybody out. But she has a fairly solid jab, and she can hold her own on her feet. Now, the key here to her success, despite what she's shown us for striking, is her grappling game. When she can go offensive with her mat game, that's when she's very successful. She has a 4-pack of submission wins, and she has shown she can score takedowns, and she's got a very solid transition game. Now, we haven't really seen a lot of Syuri Kondo on the mat. She has 0 wins by submission overall, no takedowns for or against in the UFC. She's defended everything that's put at her, but I think Yoder's the best, grappling, wrestling-based fighter that she's faced so far. I says Kondo's steady in the feet, but at times she can let her opponent kind of dictate the pace and look to sit back and counter, and that's not the best bet for a fighter who's not going to do a lot of damage with what she's throwing. I like Yoder here as she has the grappling edge and could mix in some well-timed takedowns to edge out some very close rounds. It's also, as I said previously mentioned, it's the first time Kondo's fought in the United States. She's fought almost entirely in Japan, in the Asian territories, but I think she fought once in Chile, but still, this is a big step to the United States. Again, we've talked about in the past, those fighters who make that east to west travel, it can impact their performance, and if that happens here, Yoder's going to edge her out in a very close fight. Again, I think she'll be more active on the feet, and again, combine it with those well-timed takedowns. She has that secondary offense that could be her primary mode of attack here, which I think would be a very smart move, but ultimately my prediction is Ashley Yoder to defeat Syuri Kondo by decision. Fight number 2 in the main card goes down in the UFC's middleweight division as trailblazer Kevin Holland, 15-4-0, battles Alessio Di Chirico, fighting out of Italy with a current record of 12 wins and 2 losses. Now, Holland is coming off a good back-and-forth scrap with Gerald Meerschaert that he won by split decision. He's 2-1 in the UFC overall, with his loss coming by decision to the current light heavyweight title challenger, Thiago Santos. For Di Chirico, he has won back-to-back fights, and he's 3-2 in the octagon. It's worth noting that 2 of his 3 wins have come by split decision, and we'll talk about that momentarily. Physically, Holland, 6'3". He's 3 inches taller than Di Chirico. He will have a 7-inch reach advantage, and he's the younger fighter by 3 years. This man has an awesome frame for the division. If he can just get a couple things focused and get himself oriented in the right way, he has a lot of potential in a division that's seeing an mass exodus of a number of talented fighters. There are gaps to be filled. I think Kevin Holland's one of those guys that can fill it. That being said, his fight IQ worries me. He fought John Phillips, and at times he knew he had the grappling edge. And yet he stood and traded with him, and he took some big bombs, and that fight turned out to be quite a scrap. He ultimately won it by submission, but he exposed himself to the biggest weapon of his opponent. When he fought Gerald Meerschaert, he spent a lot of time on the mat with the guy. He was hurting him on the feet. He was doing a lot of damage when they were striking. He was doing a lot of damage when he had superior position, but then he was giving up takedowns. He was simply making poor choices, and it nearly cost him his decision. I had Holland as one of my top picks on that card, and watching the way he fought that card, it gave me I don't know, indigestion. I don't know what it was. It was just frustrating to watch him fight the style of fight that his opponent wanted, and it nearly costing him a matchup that was very winnable. Now, for Di Chirico, his inability to find clear-cut decisions and clear-cut success in the UFC is concerning. He's gone to the judges on 3 occasions. That means he's had 9 judges involved in his fights. Of those 9 judges, 5 of them have felt he's lost his matchups. 5 of them have gone for his opponent, meaning only 4 judges of the 9 he has seen have picked in favor of him. Fortunately, 4 of those judges each split themselves 2-2 in 2 of those fights, allowing him to go 2-1 in decisions. But again, it's not encouraging to see a guy struggling to edge out decisions in fights. And again, it's also worth noting, all 3 of those fights came against fighters no longer on the UFC roster. So guys that, they're borderline fringe UFC caliber, capable fighters, but again, he's edging them out just barely, and it's suggesting he's barely holding on to his position in the organization. Now, Holland is an absolutely big step up for Alessio here, and if he can pull off this win, that will certainly reaffirm that he belongs in the organization. Statistically, Holland's recent wins have been very odd, to say the least. Against Phillips, he landed 123 significant strikes, and he eventually got the takedowns, landing 5 in total. Against Gerald Meerschaert, he outlanded him 27-10, but he gave up 6 takedowns and landed just a single one of his own. So it's been a kind of a hodgepodge of offense for this guy. He's showing he's very diverse. He's showing he has a lot of different things going on, and he's capable, but he's also risking his performance in the process. Now, Di Chirico has shown he can utilize takedowns effectively. He did so against Julian Marquez, and that could be his best avenue to victory here. Holland, as I said, was routinely taken down by Meerschaert, and Thiago Santos had a lot of success putting him on the mat and keeping him there. He is a solid scrambler. He's got some decent submissions, and he's capable of working out of some bad spots, but again, that's a losing position if you're constantly being taken down. Now, at range, the kicks of Holland are going to be a major issue for Di Chirico. He's going to struggle to match them. He's going to struggle to have to close that distance. And you combine that with the reach of Holland, and if he can do things correctly, he's unorthodox as it is, he's going to keep Alessio guessing for the majority of the fight, and he's going to have to take some very dangerous opportunities to close the distance and shoot, and that's what you have to be concerned about if you're supporting Alessio Di Chirico here. If Alessio tries to change levels and score takedowns, I think Holland is pretty solid scrambler, and he's going to be able to get out of those spots and make it a point of diminishing returns as far as those takedown attempts will be. Now, there are some concerns over Holland's willingness to go to his back, but again, I feel Di Chirico will struggle to close the distance. He will struggle to land enough offense to take a decision if he can't get on top routinely. And ultimately, my prediction is Kevin Holland to defeat Alessio Di Chirico by decision. Fight number 3 in the main card, and our second women's fight prediction comes down in the women's 125-pound division, the flyweights, as the 10th-ranked Andrea KGB Lee, 10 wins and 2 losses, takes on the 11th-ranked Montana De La Rosa with a current record of 10 wins and 4 defeats. Now, both girls certainly have their eye on Valentina Shevchenko. I think it's recently been announced that Liz Carmouche will be challenging Shevchenko next. I think it's a good matchup, another veteran matchup. It's actually a rematch. Carmouche, I believe, fought and defeated Shevchenko not that long ago, or at least on the regional scene. Now, Shevchenko most likely could be facing one of these two girls in the not-too-distant future if they can pick up a win, maybe a couple more. They're not there yet, but again, this is a huge opportunity for the winner of this fight. Now, Lee has beaten Veronica Macedo and Ashley Evans-Smith. She's won 6 in a row. That's a solid start to her UFC career. For De La Rosa, she has won 4 consecutive, 3-0 in the UFC. She subbed Nadia Kazim last time out in Australia, and she also submission victory over Rachel Ostovich as well. Now, De La Rosa, 1 inch taller. Lee will have a 1-inch reach advantage, and De La Rosa is the younger fighter by 6 years. Now, Montana, for the most part, has built her success around her takedowns, her top control, and her submission game. She's got pretty good wrestling. She's got pretty good grappling. She's very good at closing the distance, getting in tight, controlling, and dumping her opponent on the mat, a lot of times from the clinch, but not always the case. She lands some solid strikes once she gets to the floor. And she's good at moving to that dominant position, holding it, and working for submissions, really beating her opponent up until the opportunity to finish presents itself. Now, Lee is coming off a fight where she nullified a very strong wrestler in Ashley Evans-Smith. She stopped 8 of Ashley's 10 takedown attempts, which is a very strong defensive effort. Sorry, it was just a pop-up interfered with my reading. She does, and now she's actually pretty solid in her own right on the mat, but I think she wants to focus on her defense. She does most of her grappling work, set of her takedowns in the clinch. She's strong from that position, and that should nullify some of Montana's advantages. But ultimately, I think KGB should look to maintain a vertical base and utilize her striking. She comes from a nice varied combat background. She's a nice striking backer to draw from. She's more diverse. I think she's the harder hitter. She's the more natural striker overall. Now, Montana is no slouch on the feet. She can hold her own, but I think she's too reliant on the mat game to really win this fight if she can't take it to the ground. Look for Lee to utilize kicks and just simply put a more overall active striking attack. Montana might have some issues with this, might have some success with their takedowns, but I think Lee is going to be able to shut down the majority of them and nullify what happens once they get to the ground. Lee needs to be mindful of getting caught in a scramble here. That's certainly something with Montana's opportunistic submission game you have to be careful of, but I think Lee outworks her everywhere, and the fight goes. It defends a couple of concerning scenarios, and my prediction is Andrea Lee to defeat Montana De La Rosa by decision. Moving right along to the UFC's welterweight division, Bryan Barberena, 14-6-0, back in action, taking on the returning rude boy, Randy Brown, with a current record of 10 wins and 3 losses. Now, Barberena is coming off that unreal fight of the night performance against Vicente Luque. He took everything Luque had to throw at him early. He rallied. He took the fight over, was looking good, but got stopped with just 6 seconds left in the matchup in a brutal fashion. Overall, he is 5-4 inside the octagon. For Brown, he's been out of action for 11 months, since a very obscure knockout loss to Nico Price, where he was in top position and got KO'd. Overall, he is 4-3 inside the octagon. Physically, Brown's a taller man by 3 inches. He'll have a 6-inch reach advantage, and he's 1 year younger. He is a more natural welterweight, and probably most likely cutting. He's a bigger welterweight. He cuts down more. Where Barberena's fought at lightweight, could probably go back to lightweight, but I think he likes not having to cut. I think it's better for him. Now, this stands to be an all-action matchup. Exciting fight. Barberena has become an ultimate gatekeeper when you look at his record. His losses in the UFC to Vicente Luque, Leon Edwards, and Colby Covington, all welterweight guys, have gone to be top or rising competitors. Brown's lost some good competition as well. The aforementioned Nico Price, Bilal Muhammad, but again, just a step below the guys that Barberena has been unable to defeat. And then you look at what Barberena did against Worley Alves. That's probably the most significant victory either one of these guys has overall. The big factor here is the pressure and the durability of Bam Bam. He's very effective on the feet, and how is Brown going to deal with it? What's he going to do to nullify it and then capitalize on it and score? Barberena likes to push forward. He likes to engage, take your best shot, and keep coming. He breaks his opponent with his will. He uses his lack of defense and willingness to just go as an offensive weapon. Against Luque, he landed 169 significant strikes, but in the process absorbed 163. That's crazy. Back when he fought Warlley Alves, he landed 120 significant strikes again. He took it over in that matchup. Brown has never come close to those totals. Even defensively, the most he's given up, 71 significant strikes in a fairly wide decision loss to Bilal Muhammad. Now, one of the most common themes of Barberena's defeats have been his opponent's reliance on takedowns. Both Edwards and Covington scored multiple takedowns. I think Edwards landed 3. I think Covington landed something like 12, and were able to grind him out and take him to the mat. That diffused his offense, and that really took away that forward pressure that he's so good at using. Now, Brown has shown he can operate on the mat. He had success against Mickey Gall in that position, but again, it's not his strength. He's not going to come out and hit a blast double and put Barberena on the mat and do it with regularity. At least I don't think he is. He could surprise us. He's been out of action for a while. Now, Brown, he came to the UFC as a fighter with a good frame for the division, long, lanky, well-built, and with finishing power. And we haven't really seen it. He's got 2 stoppages, both against the guys who've been one by submission, one by knockout, both against guys who have been long cut from the promotion. He hasn't really shown he can finish anybody else here. Brown's time away from the cage could lead him to make some improvements, but it could also create some ring rust, which you cannot afford against a guy like Barberena. Brown also tends to be a strong starter, which is great. But he also tends to fade. Against Mickey Gall, he was dominant in the first round. He gave away the second round, but because Gall's inexperienced in later fights, it allowed Brown to get back in the fight and take it over. On the flip side, Barberena tends to be a bit of a slow starter, and then he starts picking things up. And we saw against Luque, he starts marching forward in rounds 2 and 3 and takes those matchups over. So that scenario favors Bam Bam here. Look for Barberena to keep pushing forward, constantly engaging, getting inside the reach of Brown, backing him into the cage, hammering him with shots, clinching up, jamming him up, just brutally engaging him to the point where Brown starts to fade, overwhelming him, possibly stopping him. But my prediction is Bryan Bam Bam Barberena to defeat Randy Brown by decision. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's bantamweight division's Hands of Stone. John Lineker, ranked 10th, with a record of 18-2-0, takes on the 12th ranked Rob Font, who currently doesn't have a record showing up on the UFC website, which is unfortunate. Either way, great matchup. It's actually a rematch from UFC 198 back in 2016. Lineker won that fight by decision, and Lineker's moving in, taking this fight on 2 weeks' notice. Prepping. He actually had demanded a fight. He'd asked for a fight in the media, saying either let me fight or release me. And this is a great opportunity for him to step in and fight a guy he's beaten before. But again, a win over him is still a huge win for Lineker here. Now, he's coming off a split decision loss against Sandhagen, which was difficult. I had Sandhagen in that matchup. He had won 8 of 9 prior to that. For Rob Font, he beat Sergio Pettis after he lost to Rafael Sunsao. Font has fought very well in the UFC, but he's really struggled to break through that next level, losing to Sunsao, Pedro Munoz. He did beat Thomas Almeida, which is probably his biggest victory, of course, losing to John Lineker as well. Physically, Font 5 inches taller, 4-inch reach advantage. Lineker is the younger man by 3 years. Now, as Lineker demanded this fight, he's jacked up. He wants a matchup here. He's only fought once a year since 2016, so he's had struggle staying active, so he's looking to get back going here. Now, as we've said in the past, Lineker's style is fan-friendly. But is it meant to overcome guys in the upper echelon of the division? Is Font in the upper echelon? Has he made the adjustments and the improvements since their last matchup that would allow him to overcome that style? Now, in their first fight, Lineker landed 80 significant strikes to Font 40. Font went 0 for 3 on takedown attempts. And that kind of told the majority of the action there. Both guys have gone 4-2 since they fought, so neither guy's really broke through. Lineker's had a couple of main events, which was kind of big for him, but Font, same record, just not quite the caliber of opponent, or at least not the caliber, but at least the spotlight that Lineker has gotten. Now, Lineker in that matchup was cutting off the cage very well, which he usually does when he's fighting at his best. Font was using a lot of lateral movement, but he's unable to create space, and Lineker was marching him down and landing big shots. Lineker's leg kicks, which are underrated, were having a lot of effect in that matchup, and whenever he got close to Font, was able to push him back into the cage, he came crashing forward with 3-4 punch combinations, just winging big body shots and shots to the chin, and having a lot of success. Now, Font kept pumping out single shots to try and back him up, utilizing his jab, but again, with Lineker's unbelievable chin, he just wasn't threatening him at all. He wasn't doing enough to dissuade him from moving forward. And that's the big question here. Has Font found a way to slow down Lineker? Will he be able to push him back? Will he have a certain counter that will put Lineker in a position where he can't be so willing to just push forward and engage? Now, again, Lineker likes to plod forward, working the body and head. He cuts off the cage very well, as I said, and he throws with serious power, and he's also incredibly durable. That's a bad combination if you can't find an answer for that. He has 14 wins by knockout. He's never been knocked out. And he's shown he can land with decent volume. In the Sandhagen fight, he landed 106 significant strikes. Against Kelleher, he landed 102. Against John Dodson, who's traditionally very elusive, he landed 93. So he can put up a lot of offense. The Dodson one was over 5 rounds. Now, Font's a very good technical striker. He's got power. He will have a reach advantage. He did finish Almeida and Matt Schnell. Both guys have been knocked out multiple times, so they're not nearly as durable as a guy like Lineker. So I don't know if Font's going to be able to be the first guy to crack Lineker's chin. I don't think he will be. But again, I've been wrong before a lot. When you go back, obviously we had the Lineker-Font fight to look at. When you look at when Rob Font fought Pedro Munoz, despite being the more technical striker, Munoz was able to pressure him, land power shots, hurt him, forced Font into panic wrestling, and got submitted. And again, it suggests to us that if Font can't back you up, can't do some type of damage with his striking, he's going to struggle to find that alteration to his game plan that's going to make him successful. He is coming off his first 100 significant strike performance, not his normal volume. He usually lands between 40 and 60 significant strikes at range. And I think that's one of the issues here. I think we're going to see John Lineker push forward. He's going to land the better offense. And unless John's chin fails out of nowhere or finds a way to pick up that pace without getting blasted himself, he's going to struggle to score enough points to win this matchup. Now, Font could look to his takedowns, could look to his wrestling. But again, Lineker's hard to take down. And again, it's not Font's number one strength. The short notice for Lineker could be a factor, especially if he only gets one round in before he starts to fade. That's certainly worth considering here, but I'll take the risk, and my prediction is John Lineker this time to make short work of Rob Font. My prediction is John Lineker to defeat Rob Font by TKO. And in the main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's featherweight division. It's Renato Moicano, the 5th-ranked fighter in the division, takes on the former title challenger, the 12th-ranked fighter, the Korean zombie Chan Sung Jung. Jung coming with a record of 14-5, Moicano with a record of 13 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. Now, both fighters are coming off knockout defeats. Moicano at the hands of Jose Aldo, Korean zombie by Jair Rodriguez, and that crazy reverse elbow in the final second of the matchup. Now, Moicano had won back-to-back matchups against Cub Swanson and Cater, which was telling he was really starting to gain some momentum. He had that loss against Brian Ortega, which, hey, we know what Ortega's capable of, so really not too much of a knock on him. Now, for Korean Zombie, he came back from a long layoff with the knockout of Dennis Bermudez, very abrupt. Then the fight prior to that was a TKO loss to Jose Aldo for the title, which seemed forever ago. The guy's only fought twice since 2013, since that Aldo title fight. So crazy inactive with, I believe, participating in the South Korean mandatory military service. But I could be wrong, but I think that certainly contributed to it as well. Some injuries probably played a role as well. Now, Moicano, 4 inches taller, though, the same reach. He's the younger man by just 2 years. He has fought 8 times in the same span that the Korean Zombie has fought just twice. Now, looking at the Brazilian first, he needs to find a couple of wins, as he's in danger of being left behind. There is a new surge of title challengers coming up, and Moicano's kind of taking a back seat to guys like, obviously Ortega passed him by, but guys like Volkanovski and Magomed Shapirov are all guys that have passed him by and are certainly on the verge of pushing him down to that gatekeeper type status. He needs this win to elevate himself back up to a title contender opportunity. Now, as I said, Korean Zombie's coming off a very solid performance, and I picked Rodriguez, so I was very happy to see what happened there. I thought the Zombie was going to edge him out in the scorecards. I know some people didn't. I know I listened to Brandon Kay, and he said he didn't feel he was going to win a decision. I thought it was a very close fight, and I thought Jung was going to edge it out, but hey, it is what it is, but the finish was unbelievable. Now, Moicano likes to mix up his offense. He has a variety of weapons. He has solid kicking attack at distance. He can counter-strike. He's got good takedowns and very capable submission skills. He's got a lot of things to rely on. For KZ, he loves to mix it up. He has decent striking. He maintains pressure. He will work in takedowns when possible, but he likes to brawl and really just put on a good show for the fans and put pressure on his opponent and make them engage him. He was having a lot of success moving forward against Rodriguez, closing, clinching, and just landing strikes. His tie plum was very effective. Get his hands on his opponent and start landing just short strikes, elbows, whatever, and just beating up his foe. I'm not a huge fan of how he plods forward. I think he leaves himself open to fighters that utilize a lot of movement, and he's there to be kicked as well. But Rodriguez still struggled capitalizing on that. And he had a lot of struggle changing the flow of the fight. Moicano will have the option to look at the takedowns, but again, KZ's not easy to take off his feet. He's a very difficult guy to take down, and I think that's worth noting here. Moicano, he broke against Brian Ortega. I remember watching that fight. I had Moicano in that matchup. He won the first 2 rounds. He landed significantly more strikes. He was looking good, and then he got hurt. He just got worn down by the constant engagement of Ortega and got submitted after he kind of panic wrestled and got put down. He has no experience in 5-round fights. He's only gone 3. Where you look at the Korean Zombie, he's gone 5 rounds once. He's gone 4 rounds twice. And even though he went 1 and 2 in those fights, it's still an impressive. He's got more experience there. Overall, I question Moicano's durability. And while Korean Zombie's been knocked out, he's no easy out, and Moicano has never won by knockout. So unless he dropped cups once with a jab and submitted him, I don't know. He's not going to do that against Chen Sung Jung, I don't think. We've seen Moicano have some issues in recent decisions, including 2 splits. One against Jeremy Stephens, where he should have outclassed him badly in that fight, and Stephens kept it close. I think Korean Zombie constantly pushing forward, cutting off the cage, and swarming Moicano is going to be a massive factor here. If Renato opts to sit back and counterstrike, he's going to get outworked. If he opts to utilize kicks, they'll be less effective off his back foot, and he's going to struggle to match the output of Korean Zombie with a kicking-based offense. I think KZ does take a lot of damage. And again, his recent knockout could have changed his approach, but again, probably not. Not the way he fights. I don't think it will. Look for him to pressure forward and either catch Moicano in exchange or batter him with volume. And my prediction is Chen Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, to defeat Renato Moicano by TKO. So those are my 6 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 154. My 6 preliminary predictions will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. They'll probably be very abrupt as they're kind of a shortened week. I'm going to do my best to crank the predictions out, the bet packs, get all that stuff handled. I'm trying to catch up on rest. I have report cards and exams and final assignments to mark, so it's a very busy time for me. I know some of my students tune in to listen to my show, so I always appreciate that. Shout out to those guys. But always, thank you very much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. We're seeming to push through. We seem to have overcome the mountain that was YouTube potentially banning my channel. I'm doing my best to deal with my lost files and overcoming that as well. We'll see what else I come across that I don't have and makes me want to cry inside. Either way, follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. I usually post as my predictions get posted or post my videos and all those on Twitter. I do post throughout events, not as frequently as I should. It's just sometimes I want to sit back and enjoy the card, and that's the best I can offer. Either way, thank you very much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it, and I will talk to you guys in the not-too-distant future. Hi.